In this lecture, we're going to review the various levels that address the responsibility for the conduct of ethical research. And it's important to note, first of all, that the conduct of sound ethical research practice is a shared responsibility. And there's an internal responsibility that relies within the research team, and the external responsibility refers to personnel that are not directly tied to the activities of the research group. So they're not part of the research team, but they're individuals outside of that. And these individuals include the Human Subjects Committee at a university, an organization, or a hospital network. The personnel involved with the publication of new studies at scientific journals are part of that chain in terms of conducting ethical research, and overall the scientific community at large bears responsibility through questioning, conducting replication studies. Oftentimes it's replication studies that will identify that a previous study or the first set of findings were not conducted with sound research practice in mind. We start with the Human Subjects Committee, and in Canada at universities and other organizations, this refers to what is often called the REB, the Research Ethics Board. And this is a group of individuals, it's a committee that serves to protect the rights of human participants, because participating in a research project from an experimental or observational perspective does impart physical, psychological, or social risks. The Human Subjects Committee also includes members that are non-institutional, so people that are not employed or not personally linked with a university or hospital are members of the community. And that's important because the research must be explained to prospective participants in a manner that can be understood and comprehended by people that do not have first-hand knowledge of the topic being investigated. And the Human Subjects Committee provides the approval for researchers to begin the study. Until the Human Subjects Committee is convinced that all the necessary items have been adequately addressed by the research team cannot, under any circumstances, begin the research study. Journal editors, once the research study is completed, journal editors and reviewers provide a level of protection to ensure what gets published has met the qualifications for ethical research. And this starts with determining the quality of the work that is submitted. It is a process that does work, but is a process that is also prone to ethical violations. So editors, for example, have been found to violate ethical standards, and that happens in order to gain some sort of political favor with potential authors. Once papers are sent out to review to reviewers, this is another level at which ethical misconduct can take place, not on the part of the research team, but on the part of the reviewers. So some reviewers may lean towards rejecting a manuscript for publication and not have adequate justification, because those reviewers may have competitive interests and limit the publication of sound quality work that would be very important to a particular line of study. The final responsibility does lie with the scientific community at large, and that includes the readership of journals and other research teams. It's the other research teams and the readership that are responsible for examining the results of studies, attempting to replicate those results, and openly questioning how the research team and how the paper came to publication to begin with. And this involves the identification of weaknesses in published work. Every research study will have limitations. Every research study published will have a certain amount of weaknesses, but if those weaknesses point in the direction that might question some ethical violation, that certainly has to be called out. One manner in which that can take place on a formal level is publishing letters to the editor that would challenge the methods or the outcome of studies directly to the research team. On a tangible level, as mentioned in an earlier video, research ethics are governed by federal and institutional policy. So in Canada, that one of the organizations that govern research conduct in the country within health-related institutions and university is the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. And so this website that addresses ethics covers all of the guidelines that are used by institutions in Canada. Specifically at the University of Guelph, the Office of Research, and here we see at the bottom of the screen the link to the research page, identifies all of the necessary steps that must take place in order to conduct research at the university. And this is specific to human participants. It's also specific to addressing regulatory compliance for use of animals, the use of biohazard materials, radiation, and various other very important items. And so the website here for the university is an excellent resource that guides researchers at the university in a step-by-step manner on how to conduct research that meets those ethical guidelines. On this description here identifies the 3 levels of review. So the Research Ethics Board will review research that is submitted, or a research proposal that is submitted by individuals at the university, and determine if it meets the guidelines so that the investigators can begin their work. The 3 classifications include exempt, expedited, and full review. The exempt level is the lowest level, or the simplest level of review, and is often reviewed by the chair of the Research Ethics Board, or in some cases is not reviewed at all. And this is research that poses less than minimal risk to participants, and includes a non-vulnerable population. And so if primary data are being obtained from individuals in this scenario, typically it will be reviewed by the chair of the Research Ethics Board and won't go out to the members. If the research involves secondary data analysis, so data that has been collected previously in previously approved research, and that data cannot be linked to a single person, or if it involves online public access data, then oftentimes the Research Ethics Board will not review the protocol at all, particularly if the data are publicly available. One of the most common methods of review is what's called expedited review, and this is the type of study that involves minimal risk, and so this involves the collection of information from human participants directly. And so some examples here are those activities that involve daily activities, low to moderate exercise, or minor stress. In such a case, the application must be completed, submitted to the Research Ethics Board, and it is reviewed by the chair, or usually 1 or 2 qualified members of the committee. And in this situation, the committee members or the chair will pose questions to the researcher that they will have to address and resubmit answers to those questions, and possibly make some minor modifications or major modifications to their proposal. At the highest level is what's called a full review, and the full review involves collecting information, collecting from research participants that involve greater than minimal risk. So the key aspect here is the fact that it is participating in the study poses greater than minimal risk, greater than what's encountered in daily life. And so some psychological or some questionnaires and surveys used in the field of psychology can be very intrusive and induce stress upon participants. Maximal or submaximal exercise, questions about illegal activities or vulnerable populations. And so this is the minimum standard that would require a full review. And so in that case, the protocol will be reviewed by at least 5 members of the Research Ethics Board in a formal meeting. And the outcome of that meeting is that the research proposal application can be accepted fully, can be accepted pending minor revisions, accepted pending major revisions, or just rejected outright. So this ends part 2 of our Unit 3 lecture.